How's it, everyone? I'm doing the intro today. This is the Crankly Speaking podcast, live from the Giro d'Italia. It's the presentation just before the race. Simon Kessler's on the other end. He's woken up super early. He's had to adjust his day to fit in with my day. So, I guess Simon, Giro d'Italia around the corner. We've had a few interesting bike races happen between the last podcast and this one. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, getting excited for the Giro. I know you there on the ground, and that's super exciting. You guys are starting tomorrow with the first stage.
Not
Just
tomorrow,
being
not tomorrow, mate.
not tomorrow. Sorry, you woke me up at 6 in the morning, man. So I'm still half asleep. So, well, when does tell me a little bit about what does it look like the first couple of days?
So it's an interesting place. We're in Albania, so we're actually just outside of Europe. It's been a bit of a logistical thing for all the teams to get you, ferries and going through customs with bikes and that. So these are all the things you hear about when you're on the other side of the fence. But we're here. The weather's pretty good. The roads are challenging for all the teams. There's not much place to ride a bike around here, except if you go on the highways. Yesterday spent about 2.5 hours just driving around trying to find a training loop for the boys. It's been a bit challenging for us, I think, for all the teams. But the race is due to start on Friday. Today's Wednesday. The excitement's there. The guys are looking forward to presentation today, and we're kicking off the Giro. It's slippery. The roads are slippery too. It's a lot of the roundabouts have got that little shine on them. So we're hoping it stays dry. I think would be a win for everybody.
Well, how many days are you guys spending in Albania there, and what do the stages look like?
Yeah, so we've got 3 stages here. They are pretty much should end in a small bunch sprint. Though the first day could be a massive bunch sprint. The second day is a time trial, and the third day is it could be, I don't know. Could be an interesting day, but it will be probably maybe a reduced bunch sprint. We've got a few climbs. We're apparently going to the more beautiful side of Albania on stage 3, so looking forward to that part. But I think then we transition that when we leave here, we actually have a rest day. So it's only 3 short days, and then we go back to Italy. So once we head over to Italy, the weather looks a lot cooler, and there could be a potential bit of rain. So you'll be in the south of Italy there, where it's pretty well known to be quite slippery. So we're praying for the weather to improve. But so far, Albania. We're staying at a nice hotel. Don't get me wrong. It's been quite a nice hotel we're in. But as soon as we step out, it gets quite busy with the traffic. So
Yeah. What I think that time trial could be fairly important. I know Derek G. He's really good at time trials. Is that one of the stages you've kind of earmarked as one of the goals to take some time back on, or take some time on the GC guys?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a course that will suit him. He's definitely, of course, we've come to the Giro with high ambitions. Obviously, Derek is, this is his big season goal, and he's going really well. And the whole season's been built around this moment. But in saying that, there's plenty of good bike riders here. Obviously, the time trial's an opening for all the GC guys. We'll know pretty soon where everybody's at, which will be a nice indicator. But you're still looking at the Giro. It's a long 3 weeks. The back end of the Giro is super tough. So kind of what you do in these first few days, it's a small indicator, but it's not an indicator of what's going to be happening later in 3 weeks' time. A guy who comes in, who's already coming to this race really, really going well, is not to say that he's going to be finishing the race in the same kind of way. So a lot can happen in 3 weeks, and that's the challenging part with Grand Tours. So I think we're in a good spot. We've got Corbin strong for the sprints and the flatter days too, and a few opportunistic stages. So we've got a little bit of a dual-pronged attack this year, but obviously Derek is the main priority, and then we're going to support his ambitions.
So I know you've had a long-term plan with Derek G to, the goal being top 5 overall in the GC. What does that look like, say, if we go back until December, for those people who don't really know what it takes to prepare for a Grand Tour? What does it look like from the team perspective and the training and all the training camps and everything else? Can you give us a little bit of an insight of that build-up period for the last months all the way up until now to get ready for the Giro?
Well, I think we've obviously the he's done a few camps with the same guys. Most of the races that he went to this season there was a core group around him. Jakob Forsgang, Marco Frigo. So those kinds of guys are going to be expected to be with him quite late into the race. Then we've got Jan Hurt, he's just come from his own training camp in Colombia. Corbin's been racing a lot of different kinds of races, but if you're looking at just Derek and his own world, it's just been like training camp, go to Tirreno, see how you go in the GC, do well there, then kind of take all the risks and all the elements in between that, then prepare for Alps, see how that looks. Then obviously when he started Alps, he was just come off an altitude block, so first 2 days really struggled, and then really as the race progressed really started to find his engine again. So those are great signs for us. And then coming to the Giro, it's obviously a little bit of a taper before, and then you're here, right? I mean, obviously there's been lots of preparation in terms of climbing and in terms of weight loss, in terms of hitting those markers along the way with the nutritionists and everybody else in the performance team. And I think as a team they've structured it kind of like a 6-month plan from that December camp to go, okay, what are the targets we need to hit along the way? And then if Derek's hitting those targets, then we know by the time we get to the start of the Giro, he's ready.
So a lot of time at altitude, a lot of climbing, a lot of hours, and then also some minimal racing just to keep that racing rhythm, but also to avoid risk, because we know cycling is a dangerous sport. And so it sounds like he's had a really good preparation up until this point, eh? So you guys are pretty excited about his prospects of getting a top 5?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's also his first real roll of the dice of the GC. The Tour de France last year was more about, let's see how it goes. But that's not to... And of course he exceeded the expectations. But this year it's like I don't want to say like the goal is top 5. The goal, like if he comes top 5, it will be an amazing performance. It's... but we do know there's some really, really good bike riders here. And... you can't also expect him for his first time when he's really targeting it. It's different when you come back to do the race again, and where the expectation is to get top 5 in the Grand Tour versus see how you go. So try to minimize that a little bit, the pressure around it, and try and that's why we have an alternative goal with Corbin as well. Try and shift the pressure, the focus a little bit off him sometimes as well. But going forwards, we're just going to... It's like every Grand Tour, I guess, for all those riders. It's a day-by-day process. I mean, you can't get to the end in 5th overall or 3rd overall or winning the Tour by not having that process, because if you look too far ahead, you won't be able to... You lose sight of what's actually happening right now. So you got to be on your toes, man. There's guys here that are going to try and expose certain guys who have got a habit of sitting at the back of the peloton, tricky roads. There's plenty of ways to win bike races. So we've just got to make sure that we're knowing what our competition is doing, and then making sure that we have the whole team aligned on the same strategy.
Yeah, there's so much to bike racing. I think people don't realize, and it made me think watching the Tour of Romandie, watching Lenny Martinez. I know we've spoken about this a lot. There's a difference between a top athlete and a bike racer who's a top athlete. There's guys who come to the sport and they have incredible numbers. Physically, they're incredible, but yet they never really develop into a true bike racer, right? And there's a difference. There's a distinction there. I'd like to hear your words, but before I let you carry on, with Lenny, which is a funny story. I used to race in France. I raced with his dad, Miguel Martinez, back a long time ago.
I just remember the cool full dynamics kit. That was I loved it.
When I turned 18, I moved to France, and my goal was to become a professional cyclist. My dad being French, and I raced as a Frenchman. And there was a big junior race, a national race called Les Routes des Vins in Mâcon. And the first day I rode away with with Miguel, his dad, and then he won the stage. I got 3rd, and the next day he just rode away from us in the climbs. He won by like 6 minutes, and I ended up 3rd overall. But what was interesting really back then, Miguel, he was literally, by the time he was in middle school, like 16, 17 years old, they had taken him out of school. He was racing with his dad, who was king of the mountains in the 70s, who was from Spain and had moved to France, He was a top pro, and they literally just raced for money. And he was like, 16 years old and driving all over France, doing criteriums, trying to win preems, and just purely as a business already at like 16 years old. It was kind of crazy, right? Already as a pro, like at that age. And now it made me think that when you watch Lenny, clearly he has that bike racer, and clearly I'm sure his dad and his grandfather gave him a lot of tips and strategy on how to be a real bike racer versus just an incredible athlete. Obviously he's got incredible physiology as well. Can you just explain to people really in your mind, what is the difference between a real bike racer and somebody who comes to the sport who's just an incredible athlete but doesn't have that bike racer piece? Like what would you say is the difference there?
Well, they look for different ways to win. That there's like guys who race off script, and guys who think, okay, the race is going to be like this, and someone's going to attack here. But look at like, and I hate to say we always talk about him like today, but sometimes you never know what he's going to do, and that's an instinct. But that's also the peloton doesn't expect that, because the peloton is so, it's changing now. The peloton is changing, but yeah, everybody's is still kind of racing less off instinct versus off instinct, because they're so afraid to make mistakes, because everyone gets the script before the race from the directors or somebody in the team, or they have a plan. It's kind of like everybody sticks to that script, and even as directors sometimes you're afraid to go off script because in case it backfires. So I think the difference with those guys, they have the confidence to challenge the directors. They have the confidence to go, well, you know what, I actually felt good and I went for it and it paid off. I think, that bike racing mentality, you either born with it or you're not. Some guys winning once is not enough. Some guys, they have to win 20 times a year to feel like it's been a successful season. Some guys win one or two races and go, geez, I'm happy with that. I've had a great year. You just get these guys who've got that winning mentality, and I don't think it's something you teach. But if you're talking about learning to ride your bike and being able to handle your bike, when you've got, say, Miguel Martinez, who's your father, and that's who you're learning from, of course you're going to be a lot quicker. My father used to race, and even when I was a junior, I had information from my dad, like how to race, what to do in the sprints, how to position yourself a little bit. I mean, it wasn't like big information, but for sure, versus somebody whose father or someone hasn't done it before, or their coach hasn't done it before, the messages take longer to get through to them. So, of course, a guy like Lenny is no surprise that he can handle his bike, versus some guys who their parents are maybe a triathlete or triathletes or something, and they're like, well, they can pump out the numbers, they know what to do training, they're diligent, they tick all the boxes. But you throw them on a wet course, they just freeze, because it's not what they're used to. They're used to going out with their parents maybe the weekend and smashing 100 Ks as fast as they can. And it's a skill you can train, but I think it's definitely a skill that if you don't learn it at a young age, it's like wheeling. Like, I can wheelie a little bit, but I can't wheelie like how some of these other guys do it. They can wheelie for kilometers. But I can't teach myself now at 40 to try and do like a wheelie. It's just a skill set, I think, when you're younger and you learn to do it, that you can keep that forever. But now it's impossible to do something like that.
We want to see you, Daryl. We want to see you do that, eh?
You don't.
No, it's true. Like when I was watching Lenny with Almeida coming to the finish, there's a sharp turn, 150-meter sprint. Even before that point, he kind of laid back a bit of Almeida. It looked like he was getting dropped. But then he'd always come back, and it was almost like he was making Almeida think that he was getting dropped, so Almeida would keep forcing the pace. Because Vine was, UAE teammate was not far behind, so maybe Almeida was in two minds whether he should force the pace or not. But it was almost like he made Almeida think, oh, I'm getting dropped. And then you would see Almeida like push it, and then he would like just ride back to him the whole time. And I don't know if that's what he was thinking, but it looked like quite a clever move. And then before that last turn, 150 meters to go on a wet road, you have to be first through that turn, right? And there he did. He just jumped, before the turn. Almeida not really assertive or aggressive enough, because after the turn, Lenny led it through, kicked for the line and won. But Almeida was definitely coming back on him. Like he only won by maybe half a bike or less. So I think if Almeida had been more aggressive and assertive like Lenny, He could have easily won that stage, but it just highlights again how, like, when a bike racer senses the victory, they're not going to let it go. They're going to take it, like, almost 10 times out of 10, like a real bike racer. They're never going to let those opportunities slip. Whereas some riders who are just happy to be there, maybe not as quite as competitive in nature, sometimes they're just happy to be there, right? Top 3, top 5. They don't go all in for the line, like as if it's like the last thing they're going to do on this planet, Whereas I think true bike racers, when they sense the finish line, they're able to go so deep and like there's no tomorrow, And I think often that's the difference between the guys who keep getting the victories and those who are happy with a top 10 finish.
Or maybe Almeida was just like, this is my time to shine in UAE. Geez, I only had about 5 opportunities over the last 3 years, so I'm going to make this one count. Not going to let Vine get back and then he's going to have a shot of winning. I mean, the competition in that team must be so intense. All those bike riders in that team, if you look at their top 10, are probably guys who can, majority of them could probably win a race like Tour of Romandie or by themselves, The depth is so huge. You'd wonder when those guys actually start to get to a point of just saying this is enough and changing teams and, pursuing their own goals, or if they're just like happy to be in today's shadow, have a few opportunities here and there, and then go to the Tour where they know, there's lots of pressure. Yeah, I'm happy to be a workhorse, domestic. That will be interesting to see. But that's again, if you look at Froome, when Froome won all those Tour de France's, like there were some days in the final would just be like him, Sagan. Remember that one crosswind? Was it like 3K to go? They rode away from the peloton, and still Froome tried to win that stage. He made G ride and then try and sprint Sagan, but he's got that mentality, right? He's got that mentality like I want to win every bonus second I can, and even I can potentially beat him. And that's what makes those guys so good. They don't see the boundaries. They don't see of course, they've just got a different confidence level. But winning also brings confidence. When you're the best in the world and you're the best, it's hard not to feel like I deserve to win.
So talking about winning, and one of your old teammates who you know very well announced with immediate effect, Caleb Ewan, that he's retiring from the sport. According to the articles, he came back, he wanted to experience that winning feeling, and yet when he won this year, he had a great start to the year. He won 2 races with Ineos. He just didn't have that feeling. I know personally, I had a similar experience when I decided to quit bike racing. I had a shift in how I felt I felt a little like when I was 18, 19, winning really gave me a big, boost and high. Not that I was winning at the World Tour level, but just winning in general. But I remember towards the end of my career, that winning felt very empty, kind of like what he was describing. And that for me was also a time where I decided, this is it. I'm not driven in the same way like I was when I was 18. He described that he just realized that, it felt pretty indifferent after winning these last 2 races, and he realized that was a sign for him just to say, this is the time to call it quits. What are your thoughts on Caleb? I don't know him personally. Obviously, you know him very well. Tell us a little bit about him and his career.
Look, I mean, he's had a career of like ups and downs, right? He had like this huge trajectory, and he was probably one of the best sprinters in the world. He still probably is one of the best sprinters in the world, but the life changes. You have a family as well. You hit the deck a few times at the Tour. It takes you longer to come back. The impact it has on home life. The kids, they also see it. You maybe start questioning, like, is this worth it? Of course, there's money in it, but at the end of the day, you probably also decide, like, is money everything? Probably not. I think you only have respect for someone who's winning and then says, I actually don't want to be here anymore. It's just, probably getting a sense of relief. People around him is probably like, the team gave me a chance. I feel like I've paid them back. But actually, when he goes home, he's probably thinking, I don't really want to train anymore. I actually don't really want to be out there anymore. And I don't want to go to a Tour de France sprint. And that's something you can't change. If you have that feeling, you can't be in this game. It's when you start seeing those danger signs, when you start seeing all those things that goes around a bike race, or being away from home, or all the sacrifices, when you start seeing the sacrifices yourself, when you're just not naturally doing them, that's your sign. That's your sign where you've had enough. And of course, there'll be times where you're like a little bit down in performance and you're not being able to produce anything. But there is a time where you like now Caleb, he's winning. He's at the top of his game. He's back up there the World Tour. He should be feeling good. But then he doesn't. So then it's like just that like, you know what I was feeling was right. It's probably better I don't be around you because you can't go to the bigger events. And no doubt there'll be some teams going, oh, listen, I'll give you a contract. Just come and... But there comes a point where you just say, I've had enough. I've had enough of training. I've had enough of being away from home. I've had enough of, fighting guys for a corner. And that feeling of sometimes racing at 75k an hour and guys hitting the deck in front of you, you get tired of that. So depends on your injuries. And he had a couple bad injuries. So when you have a lot of injuries, to come back from them, it's not easy every time.
It is a scary sport. I know there were times when I was racing where I was like, praying like I wasn't going to die in this moment, descending in the middle of a pack at like 80 plus k an hour. I'm sure you've experienced that many times. Some people aren't wired that way, but I think a lot of people are praying in those moments saying, I hope no one crashes right now.
Yeah, like sometimes I didn't see danger or whatever when I was focused on stages or when we were racing, but at the end when I started looking like online, Velavio, like what's the downhill like compared to the uphill, then I knew, like, I was just thinking, shit, what is this downhill like? Is it hectic or twisty or like, do I have to worry about, Then I was like, I never used to think that way. So when you shift your focus like that, that's a good sign. And Caleb, he had his big moments, right? And maybe when you've had success like him too, and you've won such big races, and you're probably going to potentially, you're winning in Tour of Basque Country, which is a great race. It's a World Tour race, very hard, difficult race, but it's not going to bring you the highs of the Tour de France, And then he's thinking, I've done that before. I've done all those things. Maybe he's just ticked all the boxes for himself, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's probably a couple of athletes still riding around the peloton that probably should stop, and haven't. And they just become bitter and they just become moaning about how difficult modern cycling is. The other day we were in the car just coming to our hotel here, and now Schulte was in the car and he's like, yeah, people are always moaning about modern cycling. It's like, he's like, but if you don't like modern cycling, you can leave. You just got to leave. And it is true. Like the older guys, and myself included, used to bitch about it, but it is true, because I remember the older guys when I was younger going, gee, man, this is stupid. Now we're training with power meters and I've got a coach and all these different things. And you're like, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. The sport's going this way. And that's the truth.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's funny. So I know you don't have much time. You're heading to the team presentation. So to come back to the Giro, we have 3 days now coming up: Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Albania, then a rest day Monday. So hopefully, maybe we can chat next week if you have time, hearing about those first few days. How does the week after Albania, is that, you said, mostly in southern Italy, like flatter stages, or there's some climbing
there?
There's
a few tough days, but there's, not the big shake-up in the Giro is going to be the last week. Of course, there's a few testing days before that, but you got a star-studded field, guys that you got Roglic, you got Henley, you got Yates, you got Ayuso. There's so many. Then there's like the other Yates brother, Simon Yates riding for Jumbo. So like Visma. So there's so many outsiders here that can change the race. And when you're looking at, like, when I tell you, like, there's going to be some testing times, there's going to be the weather, there's going to be lots of things. Nobody knows if we're going to be able to do all the climbs if the weather's bad. So it could change the dynamic of the race too. So it's very difficult to predict now what's going to happen. But I think if you exit this week, I think a lot of GC contenders, if they exit this week having executed a good time trial and not having lost any time on the other stages, and they've got a bit of time in there, they'll take that and be like, that's been a successful week. Whereas next week, the stage 7, that's quite a difficult day. But then the big one is going to be in the second week, where we hit the gravel stages, and the long forecast looks like good weather. But I think there's a lot of GC guys that are very, very worried about that day. So
the gravel day, I've heard you talk about it a lot. Is it going to be a very challenging technical day?
Yeah, well, it's not as much as Strada Bianchi, but the sections are. There are a few sections that are the same as Strada Bianchi, but the big thing is, we all know what can happen on those. You just throw a bit of gravel in any race, the riders are all trying to get into the front, trying to avoid a crash, trying to do something. So the pace is on, the stress is on. One guy makes a mistake, the whole day, your whole day can get unraveled. You could be ahead of those things, as crashes or punches, and you could have a fantastic day. But it's about mitigating those risks on the day, having guys at bottle points, wheel points. Yeah, the organization that goes around that day it's a big one day classic. So tick that box, get through that, then you can go to the next part of the Giro. So I think that's what a lot of teams are starting to think along that route. And well, like I say, we're going to take it day by day. Make sure we're ticking those boxes along the way, and then that top 5 result will come at the end of the Giro. It won't come in the first week. So
it's really about taking each day as like a one-day race in a sense, right? Just getting through.
Patient.
Yeah,
being patient as a group. Of course, there's a lot of hype. Of course, we'd like to win a stage. You don't want to go through 21 days here without a victory. There will be some days we'll be looking for breakaways and things, but it's a long time, 3 weeks on the bike here, and there's a lot of things going on here. There's crashes, there's punctures, there's heaps of things. So you're just dealing with it as it comes.
So before we wrap it up, I know besides your team rider Derek G, who do you think? Give us your predictions for the top 3 overall. I'll go with, I think Roglic. It's just such a rider, an incredible rider. I'm going to go with him for the win. Maybe definitely Ayuso on the podium. I'm not really sure of a top 3 who I'd pick, but I would definitely take those 2 guys as first and second. What about you? Do you have any predictions for us for the podium overall?
I think you're pretty much on the money there. The third spot, it's very difficult to say. I mean, Pat's in the room next to me. Maybe Pat knows who he put as the third, one of the top 3, but he's actually sleeping. I think I put him to sleep here.
Maybe Derek G, yeah?
He was busy doing some daily plans, yeah. But I don't know. I think maybe we should talk about who's going to win the sprint. There's heaps of sprinters. Yeah, there's Peterson, there's Coy, there's lots of sprinters here too. Caden Groves. It'd be an interesting couple first stages here. Obviously, the first guy who wins the first stage is going to be in the Maglia Rosa, which is going to be big for any team. So I'm banking a sprint, but it's not a simple or straightforward circuit. But it should be a bunch sprint. But then we'll see. The overall picture. Of course, I'd love to see Derek G up there in the top 5. That'd be awesome. There's, the Giro. There's so many teams. You can't really pick it, right? It's so difficult to choose. I don't think. I don't want to throw anyone out of the race yet, because so much can happen.
Cool. I guess we'll leave it there. Thanks for making time. I know it's super hectic right now, getting ready for the Giro, so we appreciate that, and look forward to hopefully trying to squeeze in one next week if you have some time. Anything else you want to?
We'll make time.
Good.
It's been good. It's just a massive thanks to everyone who's listened again, and look forward to updating you from the Giro, and I'm sure we'll have some stories from the car and things that are happening here on the road.
Yeah, we look forward to that. Please, like and subscribe if you're enjoying these podcasts. Please help spread the word as we get the podcast launched, and we appreciate everybody listening. That's it for me. See you guys.
Cheers.